How you doing, folks? Yours truly, Randee here for another edition of today's talk. Today we talk to Andrea Brockmeier. She's the Client Services Director for Watermark Learning out there in Minnesota. And we talked about her article, which is entitled Teaching Project Management, Important Life Skill. And we discussed also teaching project management to middle school aged children. She certainly had a lot to say about that as she deemed it a good and worthwhile endeavor to get into. Um, Talked about a couple of areas where it's a good start to teach uh, middle school aged children about stakeholders, um, who's interested in the project, who stands to benefit from the project. We also talked about tools that she uses as a project management professional, um, tools like Skype, Outlook, uh, also having a scope statement. And she was also talking about how she uses a charter uh, with every project that she does. We got in pretty deep with regards to you know project management jargon, technical terms. Um, we also talked about the role that social media plays, as well as technology that's used in our project management. And it's a great interview. It's a great interview. I suggest that you listen to it. And to tell you the truth, this interview was done with a focus on teaching project management to middle aged children. And again, she deemed it as a very good endeavor to get into. And, if you have, uh, you know, children or some young people around you, you may want to consider teaching them or having them be taught project management because I think it's a way to the future. We also talked a bit about automation. So, again, you want to listen to this interview. This is Randy Rand. Thank you for the time. And we're back. Yours truly, Randy Rand here for another edition of today's talk. And today we are speaking with Andrea Brockmeier. She's the Client Solutions Director for Watermark Learning, and we're going to be discussing her article, Teaching Children Project Management, Important Life Skill. Welcome to the show, Andrea.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Great. And again, we thank you for giving us some of your very valuable time today. And my first question is when beginning teaching project management to middle school age children, say on a long term basis, what content area would you recommend the teacher begin at?
Well, I think one of the things that young kids will relate most to in project management is the what we'd call the stakeholder piece. And so I think it's good to think about, who are the people, and you can kind of use that sort of technical perspective. Who are your stakeholders and all that kind of thing? But who are the people that are interested in what it is that you're doing? So I think because kids, perhaps not so unlike the rest of us, are really interested in how it affects them. And so, thinking about who are the people that they need to consider in those relationships, because that's usually foremost in those kids' minds, as opposed to starting with something like scheduling or anything like that.
Now, collaboration and effective communication is key to the success of any project. Please speak about some strategies that can be used in order to get middle school age children to understand the importance of effective collaboration and communication.
Well, I think one of the bonuses for kids these days is that I think in education, collaboration is pretty much how they do things anymore. I watched my kids who do a lot more team-oriented work in school than I remember doing when I was their age. So I think they've got kind of a leg up in terms of really understanding the importance of working together and collaborating. But there are all sorts of other things that can help them understand that. I think certainly sports whether they're in music or theater or anything like that, just understanding how getting things done together is not only more effective, but it's a lot more fun. And for that age kids, that's pretty much what it's all about, is how do we have fun doing something. The communication piece, role play probably is a good way to help them think about those kinds of things, reflecting on their experiences. And it's tightly woven with the collaboration, of course, as well.
If you could please give us your opinion about teaching financially disadvantaged children, say if they're interested, about project management and how it could serve as a way out of less than desirable conditions for them.
I think for anybody, project management is, in my mind, it's a tool it's important to know some things, you have to have some skills, but ultimately people want to know, what can you do? And I think that's where project management comes into play, is that's where you can tell people and show people that you're able to make things happen. My favorite definition of projects is projects are how organizations adapt to change. And of course, change is everywhere, and that's, there isn't much in the way of status quo anymore
Sure.
in organizations. But it's the vehicle for getting things done. And whether you're actually leading the project or increasingly as things become more, agile and that collaboration and those kinds of things, you're on a team in any capacity or you're involved in a project in any capacity, the more you can speak the language and understand what a project is, understand the kinds of things that have to happen, the better you're going to be able to show the organization that you bring value. And and I think also recognizing that it's a journey. It's not like I know it all. Organizations are constantly in flux, figuring out new, better ways to do things. But if you've got a little bit, enough of that where you can connect at some level and then, participate in the journey with them, that's where you bring the value.
Okay, now the question I really have been wanting to ask you since we've agreed to do the interview, and I don't even know if this is relevant or not, but I'm going to ask anyway. Um, is there a relationship between automation and project management? If so, please speak about it.
Well, there's a relationship between automation and everything these days, and they're right now here in Minnesota. They're running a public radio series on automation and the impact. Where are the technology safe jobs, or jobs that aren't going to be outplaced and outsourced to artificial intelligence and robots and those kinds of things. So I think project management. You've always, no matter what, you're going to have people, and if it's people and machines, whatever that combination is, you're still going to have somebody who's going to have to figure out what is it that we're trying to accomplish, what's going to be the best way to do that, and so I don't see project management going away as a result of automation, if that's what you're kind of thinking about.
What I'm aiming at is, because automation is really I think one of the biggest problems, quote unquote, that we're having in today's job market. Where it's taking over jobs from people, and I say to that,
Mm-hmm.
if people have to lose their jobs, well, unfortunately, so be it. However, if we could if the American workforce could be retrained to learn how to operate those machines, well, there you may have an answer to the unemployment problem or low unemployment problem. Now, looking down the road, these kids, these children, say in the fifth and sixth grade right now, well, one day they're going to be, adults, and they're going to need jobs or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking,
Mm-hmm.
if we get a head start on teaching them project management, if we get a head start on teaching them about automation,
Mm-hmm.
they could have a
Right.
leg up. They could have a leg up and have that leg up very early in the process with regards
Right.
to getting a job and keeping a job. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I would certainly encourage anybody to take advantage of technology training to make sure that you're fluent and savvy about that stuff, because it's going to happen and wherever you go. And to be thinking in terms of projects. And I think that's really important. So if you think about fifth and sixth graders, you're not going to go heavy duty into all the nitty gritty of project management, but to be thinking in terms of projects, to be thinking in terms of how do you adapt to change. And, I think with different approaches to project, agile approaches and those kinds of things, to really be thinking, how do we respond to those kinds of things? What are the considerations that need to be made, and how to adapt, and how do you get people on board, influencing skills, of those kinds of things, and just to orient them to thinking about everything like that, their homework, their sports, their social activities, all of that stuff. So I would agree.
So, in your opinion, it would benefit students greatly if they learned about automation as a part of their efforts of learning about project management. That would be a good thing.
Oh, I think absolutely. Oh,
Uh-huh.
for sure. Yeah, because there's going to be projects. So, in all of these things you can fold together in different ways. Organizations are going to have projects to integrate technology as it becomes available into their organizations. We're going to have automation projects of one kind or another. So there's project management skills that are going to be required for that. And, whether you're leading that project or you're going to be impacted by that project or whatever. Yeah, I think it goes, I would heartily concur. Yeah, you're going to have some understanding and language around those kinds of things about what impact that can have and how are you going to interact with that.
We are speaking to Andrea Brockmeier. She's the Client Solutions Director for Watermark Learning out there in Minnesota. And she wrote the article, Teaching Children Project Management, Important Life Skill. And she's very kind to give us some of her very valuable time today. Andrea, if you could please list some of the tools or programs that you use as a project management professional.
Yeah, so I don't actually spend a lot of time using, enterprise-wide project management tools. I get a lot done with just basic Office suite stuff and Outlook and those kinds of things. The couple of things that I find most helpful that I do on every project, defining, a good scope statement, getting a charter for one thing. I'm a huge advocate of getting that document that sanctions the project, that gives me authority as a project manager. I think of those kinds of things as tools. There's no project that I would manage without a charter, even in a small organization with not a lot of stakeholders. A good scope statement that sketches out what it is we're going to do, what are we not going to do, what can stakeholders expect at the end of the project. And then the work breakdown structure, which I find is a deliverable-based document, breaking down the deliverables, the things on this project that people are going to get. And I do that on any project as well. And doesn't have to take a ton of time, but boy, it really helps create that visual. Getting sticky notes, putting them on a wall, and getting a couple people to help me with that, and to create that picture of what it is that we're looking for on this project, what's in and out of scope. Those are really my go-to tools on any project.
Now, as the years go by, does the technology used in project management change? And if so, how does it affect you as a project management professional?
Well, I think one of the big things right now is people using social media. So as teams and projects have become more physically distributed, you've got people in different places. Everybody isn't sitting in the same office anymore. People are using, of course, online tools, and one of the things that people are increasingly using are social media and collaboration tools. So people are creating project blogs, or they're using, Facebook-type apps for communicating on projects. And there was a time when everybody kind of bristled at that a little bit, but really any of that more informal kinds of communications is really facilitating better team development, particularly with folks that aren't face-to-face. And, and so Skype and those kinds of things, people using webcams and doing anything to, as much as possible, simulate that face-to-face co-located environment. Those kinds of things, I think, are the biggest impact. And there's just a whole lot of collaboration tools out there. What's one that I just used? Escaping me for the moment. I can't remember, but anyway, they're very easy to use. A lot of them you can try for little or no cost, and really just making things more collaborative online.
Is Google Docs one of them?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Everybody uses that. You bet. I'd say that's sort of a default. Everybody uses that for anything almost anymore. Yeah.
How would any technological change used in project management affect younger students as they are learning about project management?
And I think they're usually on the edge of that stuff,
Hmm.
and they often get exposure to those kinds of things and are more fluent in those kinds of things, and pick those tools up so quickly because they get exposure. And everything's mobile too. All the mobile app stuff. I mean, everything people want to be able to. And I think that trajectory is definitely going to continue. It's not even sitting at a computer anymore. It's everything being mobile. So I think they're usually, it seems, in a good place. Hopefully, they've got resources in their district or whatever to get exposure to those things.
Now, would you agree that the earlier children are introduced to internship opportunities, the better their chances at being successful in project management?
Oh, sure. I think especially to the extent that those include some kind of mentoring and role modeling. I mean, there's just so much evidence, as it relates to project management or anything. But getting exposure to how things work and what things look like, I think even just getting an idea of what, when you can see an environment and sort of be able to picture yourself in that. Or, when you talk, for example, about manufacturing, there's certainly lots of operational kinds of things in a manufacturing environment, but I think of an engineering shop that I do a lot of training at here in Minnesota, and they work internationally. They work all around the world, and they've got this. I train in this huge manufacturing floor, and it's fascinating to just, even for me, to go in and look at this environment and see all the machines and hear it, and all of the the safety things they have in place and all of the monitoring equipment that they have. And so when you talk to somebody about manufacturing, you talk to somebody about engineering and those kinds of things, it's hard to really get a sense of what does that really mean. How do I see myself aspiring to those kinds of things? To see an environment just goes such a long ways to helping people formulate ideas and formulate dreams and goals for where they want to go with something. So I think that's huge, absolutely. Those internships, the benefit is for the people providing the internships as well. Young people have such fresh perspectives. They've got questions that they ask that others don't think of. And that benefit is two-way. It's a win-win. So I think it's not just about providing opportunities for the kids, but giving other folks an opportunity to see things from a different perspective. And when you're in the position of being the mentee or the mentor, and you're the one kind of on that end, there's a lot of benefit for those people as well to grow and get fresh ideas.
In the article, you mentioned about children having the opportunity to develop quote unquote emotional intelligence as they work in groups. Could you please explain what you meant by this statement?
Well, emotional intelligence is about ultimately having some objectivity about yourself and the impact that you have on others and being able to regulate that. So if I'm only working alone, I can develop my own way of doing things and responding to things, but that never gets checked against others. So, projects and collaborating with others is how you can see what you do and, experiment with how you respond to things and how you interact with others to engage constructively and contribute something. I'll tell you, I just was listening to a webinar this week, actually a couple of different professional events that I've been to within the last week, and it's all about leadership and emotional intelligence. That's absolutely where everybody is at right now. There's a lot of flattening of hierarchies, flattening of projects. It's not so much, people are looking more at I mentioned earlier, agile approaches where you don't have a project manager running around telling people what to do, but everything's very collaborative, a much more egalitarian approach. And so people really need to understand how do they engage with others and what impact do they make to the project? What impact do they have on the team? How do people respond to them? Having some being able to step back and look at yourself and see yourself objectively. And so the sooner kids get exposure to that, they start thinking about those things. And of course, their expectations are very different for someone in fifth grade than someone that's got 20 years of experience. But start thinking about that and learning how to regulate themselves, the better off they're going to be.
It's a matter of maturity.
Oh, and then that's a never-ending journey.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There's never a point where you say, "Whoa, done with that."
Okay.
You know, we're always learning, and every time, that's one of the best things about projects is that they're always different. You've always got different stakeholders involved. The dynamics are always different, so it's always an opportunity to grow.
We have been speaking with Andrea Brockmeier. She's the Client Solutions Director for Watermark Learning out there in Minnesota. And we've been discussing her article, Teaching Children Project Management, an Important Life Skill. And she was very, very kind to give us some of her very valuable time today. And Andrea, in closing, if there's any project or your website that you want to plug, please feel free to do so.
Oh, sure. Watermark Learning. We are 25 years we've been in the business of training and mentoring and coaching and collaborating with organizations to help them develop skills in the areas of project management, business analysis, business process management, agile, business relationship management. So watermarklearning.com, check us out. We've got all sorts of different ways of modalities that we use, face-to-face, online, all different kinds of things. So do a lot of certification training as well, PMI, IIBA, and professional certs of all different kinds. So check us out.